Hey guys, I'm Kurfuffle TV here, and I'm going to be doing a new video today. Bam! Ba 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 ba! But today, I'm not alone. I have brought my friend from afar, and he is...
Hey!
My teleportation device is a little bit...
I fell from the ceiling.
Not again. We're going to be doing a special game thingy today. I don't even know what to call it. Well... Basically, we're going to be taking all these magnet-looking thingies that stick together, holy crap, and all these big metal balls. Fun, right? Ooh. Oh crap, they're going everywhere, Caleb. We're going to build stuff and make stories out of them. And to start off, I'm going to let my guest go today, Caleb.
Ooh.
Build whatever you want and tell your story.
Alright, so I have to tell a story. Okay. Let's see. Once upon a time... Once upon a time, there were two babies that were born. One was named Arnold and one was named Harold, and they were rather large. So Harold and Arnold, they were happy little people. They were running around. They ran around the streets, and they're like, shot, 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 okay? While they were playing, all of a sudden, an evil man appeared. This will be the evil man here. He appeared and was talking to them. Oops. And as he was talking about ice cream, and anyways, the evil man said, go get ice cream way over there. So Harold went to go. Da-da-da-da-da. Wow, he snatched up Arnold and took him away. Harold ends up running back with the ice cream in his hand. I got the ice cream, y'all. Huh? Where is everybody? So he ends up having to go on a search for his friend Arnold, or Harold, or I don't know. They're both the same people, they're twins. Harold or Arnold went to go on the adventure. And when they were on the adventure, they're la 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 da 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 da. They went downhill. Oh my gosh! They had to slide. Whee! They had to climb. Where all of a sudden they see the evil man with one of the twins at the top on the top of Mount Magnet. And on the top of Mount Magnet, oops, his arm fell apart. On the top of the mountain, he was about to throw one of the twins in. So he's like, no, don't save my brother. No, save my brother. So he jumps for his brother. Just as that happened, he drops him, but at the last moment, the twin hit the other twin out, and the twin fell down the hill, with the bad man falling with him. The bad man dies because one of the twins fell on him. The twin was fat, but he wondered where the other twin went, and then that's when he realized his twin jumped and saved him, but he didn't save himself. So then, Harold, or Arnold, I don't know. The twin decided, you know what? For that, I shall eat less. And so time grew by. He was getting skinnier and happier to be himself. And he still kept part of his twin inside of him. The end.
What the heck? It was borderline cold, Caleb.
But, you know, the twin saved the other twin at the last moment. It was sad. I bet all of you cried. What do you give my story out of 10? 1 out of 10. I mean...
6, 7.
A 7? I think that's good. I accept a 7.
A 7.
It's time for your story. Here we go.
So once upon a time, there was this little world that we're gonna call Vortex. Vortex. The world Vortex. Okay, and there was this other world, which was only half complete, if it'll let me. Half complete world. This one was named Spiral, and this one was named Spiral X. These two little worlds that fought constantly, while this world over here was complete. And then long ago, they both sent space invaders from it, and they started trying to expand and grow to see who could become the biggest kingdom of them all. But what they didn't realize is that their forces, when they were fighting, stuck them together. And so they were constantly at war, even though they were stuck together and could not move. Meaning they were constantly at each other's throats all the time. So they built these huge, complex materials. Huge, complex buildings and such. I'm not even entirely sure. Of course, they didn't use blue because they're green, but in this case, this little building that they built was known as the helix structure. And these helix structure started to try to break. They broke at one point, but what they didn't realize is when they broke the second, they started to stick together. And they started fighting there. And this other world over here decided to break off each other to create this super cool little looking thing, I don't even know what it is, so that it could fight and bring a new peace to these worlds. Well, it just so happened that these worlds did not want peace, they wanted war. And sadly, they kept fighting and fighting and fighting, and then these guys came along. They turned themselves into these big personages and struck at either end.
See, opposite colors? Get it? Oh, smart. Yeah.
Anyway, that's not the point. Anyway, so they started fighting, and they started at the point breaking off these huge structures so that they could take out the majority, and they started stealing the power sources. And by doing so, this one happened and that one too, they lost their infrastructure. And then they put their power sources together in one. But something happened when they put them all together. They multiplied and kept multiplying and kept multiplying until suddenly everyone was destroyed. But not all was lost. For at this edge of this one tiny, tiny little island that was left, there was hope. And this is where my story takes place. Maxine was a short, fat man of a hobbit. And when I say a hobbit, I do not talk of these big, mythical, small, tiny creature thingies. I talk of two best friends who just happen to be really short and really, really fat. And well, one day, they were playing. They're about teenager-ish, and they were playing. And then, they found them. The steel shoes. The so sacred shoes that have been in legends for centuries and centuries. These shoes are the ones that the Grand Masters of the whole kingdom have united and built together of the biggest and best handcrafters. Handcrafted these shoes. And with these shoes, they stuck together. But what they didn't realize is when they stuck the shoes together to see what it would do, just for fun. Don't experiment with this at home, kids. It locked them together. And it kept growing and growing and growing and growing in size until it became a new world. And that, my friends, is how worlds are built.
Okay, so you're talking about worlds fighting, and then
That was the history. That was just the history.
I'm gonna give you a good 7 as well, because that was very good.
I'm just trying to make it all complicated.
It was very, very weird.
Here we go.
So there's a world, okay, just like the one you live in today, except there's different worlds on the world. We have many of them that I will not name because there's too many. There's over 1 million worlds in this tiny planet. So, when the worlds were happy, they formed, they circled, and they had a great time. Except, out of all the worlds, there is one that was known as the Forbidden World. And the Forbidden World is very, very dangerous. But, let's worry about that later. Let's first meet our characters. The fat little man we like to call, let's call him Carlos. So this is Carlos. He's a pretty happy guy. He, every now and then, he likes to wear his own little yellow shoes. He likes to run around and play like just an average teenager, basically. Nothing bad has ever happened in this world, and if there was, it would be the sign of the apocalypse. So, when Carlos was playing one day, all of a sudden, he met this strange little boy. And the boy wasn't like your average, wasn't your average kid. He was also fat, but he was silent. He did not speak. And so Carlos came to him and spoke to him. Hey, what's up? Okay. What you doing out here? You don't talk a lot, do you? But the man still did not speak, no matter how many questions Carlo asked. The man ended up walking away. Carlos wanted to follow the man because he was curious where the man was going. Whoosh, whoosh, and followed the man. The man knew he was being followed, but he did not want to turn around and freak out Carlos. And then, right when they step in, Carlos found it weird how his world was made of yellow, but he was red. So when the man passed the line, he was in the red zone. Carlos stopped at the yellow and was wondering, why is the man walking farther? And as he walks farther, he realizes, the man, he's from another world. He's from the Forbidden World. Carlo realizes that, but he's not sure if he should follow. For the Forbidden World has been known that once you enter, you will die or you will never return, no matter what. So Carlos was planning to follow, but he was unsure. Just then, as he was about to turn around and leave, an earthquake happened and blew up the sidewalk right beside him. Carlos flew backwards into the Forbidden Zone and fell down into a hidden pit that was supposed to be a trap for a animal that lives there. Carlos wakes up and realizes he has found himself stuck in a random ditch that he had no idea how to get out of. And at the top of the ditch, he saw a familiar face. It was the man. The man was looking down at Carlos. Hey, you think you can help me? The man walks off. Hey, come back. The man comes back, and Carlos says, hey, why'd you leave? Can't you help me a little bit? And the man throws down the yellow rope. A sacred object that Carlos even knew about, that Carlos knew only so much about in school. And that's what happened today. They shook violently, both of them. Screams of agony happened. And then, the world we know of Athena and the Forbidden World soon became more of the Forbidden World. And just then, even more worlds fell apart. And more. And more. Even more. All of them but one. And that's known as Grados. And that's where everyone lives today. They live in the world of sin. They have the smallest world that even we can't see. It might be right here by us. We could be holding it at the moment. But just then, the world fell too. It was left with a forbidden world. But what we don't know about is that just a few million miles into the universe, we have the thing known as the Great Line. And the Great Line is supposed to be where all the happiness is held. Once it's broken, all the happiness will be restored. But at the moment, we still live in sin, and it hasn't been broken since.
Wow, that was interesting.
I tried hard.
Dang, good job. What do you think? 1 through 10? Probably a good 9. Like
a good 9?
8.5. 8.5. I'll give you an 8.5.
8.5. Alright.
Alright guys, so this is my second story, and this is going to take place in a very weird sort of place. It's known as Audius. Audius is the town, and its colors are blue. Back in this day, there was 2 kingdoms that ruled these lands. One of them, Audius, and the other was almost the same, but it was nameless, for it had no name that anyone could give it. The languages was so complex there that no one could speak it except those who lived in such a town. And, well, that's where I come in. I'm from Audius. And this is the story of how I met the girl I love. You see, where I live right on the border, where there's always constantly wars between us. And they're not even long, sped up wars. I mean, they're just these short, petty wars over nothing. It is ridiculous. A world filled with pain, constantly. For what? For what? I don't get it. Well, that's where my story begins. On the borderline between the 2 worlds. There's me, and there's her. It was a rainy day outside that day. Well, stormy, rainy, sort of the same thing. And I was going for my afternoon walk, as I usually do. I'm just walking, and all of a sudden, I hear this boom. Boom! And it struck the border. that never have been broken in over 1,000 years. And it was thrown open at will because of the force of nature. And there, laid her go, helpless, needing this. She was bleeding from her head, and so I decided to take her in. Even though she was of the opposite species as me. And when I say species, we were completely different species of this humanoid world. I mean, it was quite interesting. And well, I took her to where I live, and you should have seen her expression when she woke up. I mean, it was priceless. Waking up in a blue home and all you know is green. Wouldn't that be interesting if blue was the only color you knew? Well, inside this house, she was laying on a bed. A blue bed, to be exact. And she had never seen a blue bed in her whole life. But all she knew was green. And when she did wake up, she saw me. She couldn't believe her eyes. How could this be? How could there be another person that looked so different from me? That's what she said anyway. I couldn't really understand it, but that's what she said. She talked of these great, big worlds that she lived in. I mean, it was brilliant. I mean, if you can imagine this, I mean, all it looks like to us, it's a tiny little star, almost like glimmering in the sky. But what we don't know is that once you get up close, it's very, very intricate. Each one of these is connections to different worlds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 worlds. That is in one sub-world that we thought existed. I mean, if you can imagine, it's capsulated in this huge ball. Such as this. This is an outer picture of it. Now, well, getting back to my point, her hometown that she lives in has been rivals to ours for generations. But what we don't know is that we're right by each other. Constantly. Hence the wars and such. But from 2 opposite sides of the world. This is where I live here, on the border. So I've seen green multiple times, and it's a weird color. If that's what we call it, isn't it? And well, she lives on the opposite side. So my question is, how did she come here? And I asked her so. She says the worlds have started to collapse in on themselves. And so, as soon as she said that, our world collapsed in on ourselves. And caused it so that those 2 worlds were collided into one. And at first we were scared. But then we realized this can be a chance for peace. A chance to end the wars of our forefathers. And before we could do anything, our world started to fall. And the middle world, who held it all on both sides, decided it would be a good idea to start a war with each other. And so they fought, and fought, and fought. And they wanted to get to each other, for the other worlds had no want in it. And they fought more. But what they didn't realize is when they did that, everything was separated. There was nothing to hold it together. But what happened was miraculous. For when the green were starting to fall away into the darkness of the oblivion, the blue helped them get back on their feet. And these floating worlds out there were also started to fall, and such. And so the green latched out and grabbed onto theirs. And of course the blue latched onto theirs. Sort of somewhat over here. And when they did so, one of the worlds was lost. Creating this. I know it doesn't look like much to you now. It's so much different than what it used to be. After all, I mean, just look at it. We wanted to unify it more so we could become closer and trade and such. I mean, how boring would it be? So we created a new bridge. And that's where we are now. We're right here. What was Audius then is not Audius now, of course. And there's a new name for it. We call it Athens. And I know that sounds like that old, what is it, the human world, where they call it Athens. And for the Greek gods, am I right? Am I saying that? Okay, I am saying that right. The Greek gods that used to inhabit there had not a war, but a competition to see who could be the great leader, quote unquote, as they called it, of that town. And while Athena and Poseidon, Both competed well, but Athena was loved more. And thus, we named it Athens. For Athena was the goddess of wisdom, and for the goddess of war strategy. And we figured if we named it after such a town and such a place, it could strike fear into other worlds to leave us alone. And it worked, for quite some time. Now I know you're wondering, whatever happened to you and the girl? Well, that was years and years ago when we first met. Back at our little home. We were both there. Both there. What we didn't realize is when two colors come together, what they form is not something that you humans could even possibly understand. Where you see, we join together as one. We don't separate each other. Like most humans, when they have a child, how it's one and there's three, and they come together. Both sides are there, always, to see. And so this baby is half and half. A half-breed that's never been seen before. And nowadays, it's quite new. And with that child of ours, I mean, we went on all kinds of crazy adventures. But after years and years after the world was in peace, bad things started to happen within the world. Everything started to crumble and crush. The force of the gravity was so strong, not even the strongest house was able to stand. And so it forced us to the ground. But what we didn't realize is that our poor baby, since it was more mutated than most, died in the process. Without our lineage, how are we supposed to go on? It's quite confusing now. We're not entirely sure what to do. But that's where we are now, trying to figure out this big world that happens. The end. What do you think?
It was very, very long and interesting, though.
Very long, I know. I'm sorry. I got carried away.
It's all good.
What was my rating?
Your rating was 8.8.
Yes! So hey guys, I hope you enjoyed all the videos here. And well, overall, the stories were pretty intense, weren't they?
Crazy.
Yeah, we were trying to be funny in the beginning, then it just turned really deep, and now we all need to go contemplate life.
I'm gonna go lie down.
You go lie down. Anyway, all my social media stuff is down below, and make sure you subscribe to this little box right here. Where's Caleb Faces? Alright, and well, can't wait for the next video.